you do that? How did you do that?
Welcome back everyone to another ESO build video. Today I'm going to be giving you the update to the Off Balance build. This is the Magicka Templar build update for Murkmire, for the Murkmire DLC. Now, this is built around several things. First of all, to support the group in terms of supplying Off Balance to the group, hence the name. Also, damage output in terms of single target and AoE, and of course survivability as well, all into one package. So, first of all, we're going to go into the stats. Make sure we've got our potion on. 42 almost, 41.7 in fact, but if you gold everything you will hit 42. 42k max Magicka almost, 899 recovery, 17k max health and 10k max stam. We're sitting on 54.8% spell crit, so our crit is quite high, which we do need to have as a Templar because we get bonuses to that, but I'll get to that in the passives. And it looks like we're on 2.6, almost 2.7k spell damage, but we're actually a lot higher than that. If you add all of our sets together and our glyph procs and all the rest of it, I'll show you in a little bit how that is way over 3k. Now, we're putting 64 points into max Magicka, of course. Our resists are fairly low, but I will show you a skill that you can switch out if you need to. But for most content, you should be fine. And we're using a Thief from Understone with stage 4 Vampire. And we're using max health, max Magicka food. Not Witch Mother, because that'll put you to about 15k health, and it's really risky. Plus, your overall damage output will be slightly less. Our recovery is covered in our rotation, and I will go over that. It's very well timed, and it will make sure that you don't run out, especially if Ellie Drain is present as well. Now, I'm going to go over the skills in detail. I'm going to make sure I go over everything, including passives, where skills come from, where they start off as morphs and what they change to, and all that good stuff. So if you are not familiar with these, then fair enough, this will help you. If you are familiar with it already, or you're already using the build, you probably already know where this is going. So you are more than welcome to skip it. But if you do, it's at your own risk, because you may end up asking questions that are already answered, and I won't be answering those comments in the section below. Now, the first skill is Purifying Light. This is in the Dawn's Wrath skill line. It's the third ability you unlock. It's quite early on in the game, but you will need to slot one of these to start with just to level up the skill line. And when you unlock this, it will be called Backlash. You want to morph it to Purifying Light. That's the Magicka version of it. Now, what this will do is this will do an initial hit of magic damage when it first hits the target, and then it will stay on the target for 6 seconds, kind of winding up or charging up or whatever you want to call it. During that time, all the damage that is done will be taken into account, and 20% of it will be saved up. That 20% can go up to 25,429 at maximum. It won't go any higher than that. You won't be able to crit from it, but that's the most you can get out of it. So the more damage you do to the target, the more it stacks up, the more likely you are to get that pop. If you can do that, you can do some serious damage with it. It's really powerful. But if you don't apply any damage, it will do a tiny amount. Now, also, when it pops at the end, it will put a healing circle around the target for 6 seconds, healing you and your group members once every 2 seconds for almost 3k a tick. It's really powerful. So not only does this do a lot of damage, but it also provides a heal to your group as well, especially for those melee types that are up close. So if you see how this is fired, there's the light. Of course, it's called Purifying Light. You're going to see a small amount of damage come out, so I'm not applying any damage. So you only get 970, but look on the ground. Nice healing circle. So anyone here, tanks, DPS, anything that's in this range will be healed. Now, obviously, like I said, the more damage you stack up, this isn't going to hurt him much. We'll do a really tiny beam at max health. Now look carefully. 3252. As you can see, the more damage you do, the more it saves up, the more it will output at the end. So if you're doing a full rotation, easy situation where you can actually rack up loads and loads of damage, and you'll get that 25k pop every 6 seconds. It's really strong. Must stay in your rotation, not just for the damage, but for the heals as well. Now, Rearm and Trap. This is in the Fighter's Guild skill line. This is the 5th ability you unlock. It's really late on in Fighter's Guild. You're going to have to kill lots of undead, lots of Daedra, all that good stuff to make sure you unlock it. And when you do get there, you want to morph it to Rearming Trap. It starts off as Trap Beast, morph it to Rearming Trap. Now, how this works, Beast Trap on the ground, anything caught inside of this will take damage over 6 seconds. It's very small damage for us because it's physical damage, not magic damage, and that's what we're based around. But while it's active, for those 6 seconds, you will of course gain minor force, increasing all of your critical damage that you do by 10%, which is essential for our setup because we do get a bonus of crit damage in our passives. Now, not only that, once the 6 seconds is over, it will rearm itself and then it will fire again. So you, instead of getting 6 seconds per cast, you actually get 12. So this can stay in our rotation the whole time. I know this is stam intensive, and of course you will need to pay attention to your sustain, especially when you're blocking and dodge rolling out mechanics, so be very careful with that. But when I get to the potion side of things, I'm going to explain how you can make sure that this isn't a burden to your overall setup in certain content. So don't panic about that being stamina. Yes, of course, there is Race of Time in the Sigil Order skill line if you want to get minor force as well, But consider that that is bloody expensive, and inside of our rotation, that's going to get a little bit tricky. So I wouldn't advise anyone to use that unless you've got an abundance of sustain, or maybe you've gone Ultra Squish and using Witch Mothers instead, which I wouldn't recommend. But Beast Trap is just fine. Now, the next ability is, of course, our Jesus Beam, Radiant Glory. This is in Adorn's Wrath skill line. This is the last ability to unlock, so it will take you some time to get, but this is our main execute. Now, this is Radiant Destruction to start with, and this can be morphed into Oppression or Glory. We have deliberately chosen Glory because this helps us survive during Execute. During Execute, there's normally enrage mechanics, or there can be in certain places. There's normally really, really high damage incoming, and you standing there channeling this ability, ignore any effects that happen apart from the beam, channeling that ability, you are in trouble. You're susceptible to attack. But you will heal for 20% of the damage being done for every tick of damage you do. So if the target is really, really low health, now pay attention here, obviously this does damage under 50%. As you can see there, the damage was really low. But under 50% health, you can do up to 480% additional damage per tick, obviously. So this is every tick, not just a whole cast. Based on the severity of their wounds. So the lower the target's health, the better. My recommendation for this on ad pools, like trash, stuff like that, hit them about 40% health and under. On bosses, hit them around 30% on under. Now, the channel time was changed on this. It used to be 2.8, now it's 1.8, so this fits in rotations much, much cleaner. But you will notice that, obviously, the more damage you do, the bigger the heal you'll receive. So at execute phases where it's really, really important that you have to survive, especially in, like, AA, Fear in Archive, stuff like that, when the mage has the big sun orb and she's trying to kill everyone, you're taking so much damage. While you're doing this, if you have oppression, you're constantly taking damage. If you have glory, yeah, you're taking damage, but you're constantly healing at the same time. You are healing for channeling your execute ability. It's very, very strong indeed. Especially if you're going in Maelstrom and stuff like that, I would highly recommend this particular morph. You can use the other one if you want, but just remember, you're probably going to die more often than not. Now, the next ability is Puncturing Sweeps. This is in our Adric Spear skill line. That was difficult to say. It's the first ability you unlock, and this starts off as Puncturing Strikes. You want to morph it to Puncturing Sweeps because this is the Magicka morph of it, and this is our main spammable. Now, there are many spammables, obviously, you can utilize as a magical class, especially Sigic Order Staff or Crushing Shock or whatever, from the Destruction skill line, or Force Pulse, or whatever you want to call it, depending on what morph you take. But this is our main class spammable. Now, what this does is this will do damage to single target, of course, in front of you, but also enemies around that target as long as they're in front of you as well. So your first one will get hit for more damage, but the one surrounding will still get hit as well, and you will get healed for 40% of the damage done. It doesn't mean just to the single target you're hitting in front of you, but the area of effect targets that get hit for less will heal you as well for 40% of the equivalent damage that they get hit by. So while you're doing this, everything you're hitting is healing you. So as you can see, our main spammable, which we use all the time, will heal us. Our main execute, which we use at execute phases, will also heal us. So our damage output is keeping us alive. It's really, really important to make sure that you keep these abilities up. Now, in a light, this is in the Mages Guild skill line. Now, this is not essential to have Mages Guild 10 if you don't want to, but it will help you. In a light, you get at level 2. Make sure you morph it from Mage Light to Inner Light, and just for being on your bar, you will gain 5% increased maximum Magicka, and you will gain Major Prophecy as well, increasing your crit chance by 10%. I know it says 2191, showing us the digits of it, but it's actually 10% increase. Now, this is also acquirable via other methods. You can get it from potions and stuff like that, but you won't get the max Magicka bonus. So if you do have Major Prophecy on potions, it's already covered on this skill, but the max Magicka is what we really want it for. However, if you're not using expensive pots, then of course you got Major Prophecy for free. Now, what's next? Ulti, of course, Destro skill. Thunderous Rage is in the Destro Staff skill line. You need level 50 in your Destruction Staff to unlock this. Starts off as Elemental Storm. You want to morph it to Elemental Rage. Now, we're using a Lightning Staff, so this does change the name and its effects. But the Lightning Staff will give it an additional 2 seconds. And basically, in area of effect, this will destroy everything. It does shock damage every 1 second. It says 9.3 there, but once you get all your crits and buffs and stuff in there, that can go way above 30. It's ridiculous. Really, really strong area of effect ultimate. Make sure you utilize this at all times.
Drinks all around.
Captain Jack in there. Thank you very much. We've got a sub. Who was that? Thank you very much. This is your main ultimate. You do have one on the back bar as well, but that is going to be during oh shit situations, and that's a swap out as well. But this is what you want to be using at all times. Do not fire your back bar ultimate unless the enemy is almost dead, which we're going to come to in a moment. I don't think I've got enough ultimate to fire it. No, I don't, so I can't show you. Maybe we'll do it in a bit. Now, back bar, you want to put on Harness Magicka. Now, yes, damage shields got slightly reduced in terms of their overall flat output. Now this will give you a 7k damage shield over 6 seconds, and if you get hit, obviously the damage shield will disappear. Now the damage shield is capped at 40% of your max health. So just consider this, the more health you have, the stronger the shield will be, up to 40%. However, the lower your health, obviously that section of your health, that 40% is going to be lower, so the damage shield will be lower. Now, if you take magic damage, you will absorb 1204 Magicka back, up to 3 times as long as the shield doesn't fall off. So that's very, very important to note. So you will get stuff back for being hit, but at the same time, damage shields were altered, although they look lower in stats, so it's almost 7k damage shield instead of what was probably around 12 or so before, maybe a bit higher. Before they were a flat value. That's it. No resistance considered. If you get hit for 7k, you lose the whole shield. Now your resist count. So they take your resist into account first, they deduct it from that, then decide how much damage you're going to get hit by, and then take it off your shield. So if you were going to get hit for 7k normally, and then your resist would turn that 7k hit into maybe 5, that wouldn't have counted before. It would have took the whole 7 anyway, because the resist don't matter. But now they do. So if that is the case, and you take the 5k instead of the 7, you've still got some of your damage shield left. So they're much, much stronger than they were before in terms of their actual design. They just made a little bit less to balance that out. Now, the next ability is... Oh, sorry, this is in the light armor skill line, by the way. It starts off as annulment, morph it to harness Magicka. Now, Blockade of Storms is our next ability. This is our bread and butter. We must have this down on the ground all the time while doing our spams, because it really, really, really helps for the overall build. Now, this is called Elemental Blockade. It's the second ability you unlock. Starts off as Wall of Elements, but because we have a lightning staff on, it's called a different name. It's called Blockade of Storms. Now what this does is this will put shock damage on the ground in front of you. Every enemy caught inside of this will take shock damage every 1 second for 8 seconds. And if you concuss the enemy, now concussion is a status effect from lightning. It is a chance to concuss the enemy. You do a tiny, tiny amount of damage, but you also grant yourself, if you like, a bit of a bonus because you affect the target with minor vulnerability, increasing all damage done to that target by 8% for its duration. However, if they are concussed, if this ability hits them, or this concusses them first, this ability will knock them off balance for 5 seconds. Off balance is very, very important. Off balance can last 5 seconds on a boss or adds, doesn't matter, bosses as well can be affected by this, even though they're immune to CC for the most part. And while they're off balance, you can gain back double resources from your heavy attack. So if you heavy attack something that is off balance, you get twice the resources back. Also, your heavy attack will be increased in strength by 70% during this period. So it's really, really important to take advantage of it. Now, the length of time off balance is up is for 5 seconds. The duration it is down, because the boss has like a an immunity to it for a little while, is 15 seconds. So this can be up for 5 seconds once every 20. So 25% uptime every 20 seconds. Make sure you pay attention to those windows of opportunity and take advantage of them. Now, what I will do is I'll show you obviously the skill first of all. Looks like that, very simple. But if he ends up getting concussed while inside the wall, he will go off balance, as you can see. That's when you want to be heavy attacking, because the heavy attacks will be increased a stupid amount. It's really, really important. But I will explain that when we get to our rotations. But this skill must be down at all times. Next is Solar Barrage. This is in our Dawn's Wrath skill line. This has been altered a few times in the last few patches, but now it's really, really hot shit. You need to make sure you take advantage of this. This will last for 8 seconds. It says 6, but it lasts for 8 because we've got some passives. Now, this will do magic damage in a surrounding area around you in a radius of 8 meters, so 4 meters either way, either side. Looks like this. Not the lightning part. Boom, that there. That little flame thing, which is actually magic damage. Now, every 2 seconds, that will fire for 8 seconds. But every time the burst effects happen, so every time you see that pulse, you will empower yourself, increasing your light attack damage by 40%. Now, light attacks have been boosted quite a lot since Somerset, especially since they now scale with your max resources a lot more heavier than they did with your spell damage in the past. So, light attacks are essential, and for every light attack you do, every time this bursts, it will be increased by 40%. It's really, really strong. So keep this up all the time. Not only will you do damage to the targets, but you will also increase your light attack damage as well. If you look very carefully at my buff timers, you'll see like a pink square with a white sword in the middle. That is your empower buff. And you see it just keeps reapplying itself over and over and over. Every light attack you do will consume it. We'll consume it on purpose so you can see it. There it is. Now it's gone. There it is. Now it's gone. There it is. Now you can see how that's working. It's really, really strong. Keep it in your rotation all the time, and you will have almost 100% uptime on your 40% increase to light attack damage. Now this is in the Dawn Draft, like I said to start with. This starts off as Solar Flare, and it morphs it into Solar Barrage on purpose. Not Dark Flare, Solar Barrage is what you want. Inner Light again on the back bar. We'll double barred it on purpose so we can get the max magical bonus on both bars. It's very important. And of course you've got Major Prophecy on both bars. Now, if you are in a situation where you feel like you need more resistance, take into account, of course, we are healing from our damage already, so we do take damage, but we heal from it quite quickly. If you find a situation where you need maybe more sustain or you need more resists, then you can go into Restore and Light skill line. You can unlock Channeled Focus. This starts off as Rune Focus, change it into Channeled Focus. This will give you a little less damage overall, not by a huge amount, but a little bit, because obviously it alters our rotation. But you can keep this down once every 20 seconds. It will give you 5,280 resistance, which is in the form of Major Ward and Major Resolve. So across the board, you'll get both resistances boosters. As you can see now, we're on 19 and 14 rather than really, really squishy like 13 and 9. Sorry. However, this has a bit of a bigger bonus to it since they changed it. You'll notice if I stand inside of it, which you will do, my resist went up even higher. I'm at 21.8 and 17.3. That's insane. That's really, really, really high. So if you want to use that, you're more than welcome to. The reason it goes up is because if you stand inside of it, your resistance bonuses for the ones you receive from the skill are increased by a further 50%. This is the only buff in the game that actually boosts Major Ward and Major Resolve. It's really, really, really strong. So if you want to utilize this, you're more than welcome to, but just consider the fact you will drop a magic bonus on the back bar, and you will drop a prophecy bonus on the back bar as well. So your back bar rotation part of it will be a little bit less than usual. Also, by the way, for having this active, you will, of course, gain 240 Magicka every 1 second, so the choice is yours. You don't necessarily need it. I've played most of the content with it without, but if you are in a situation, like I said, especially if you're lower CPs as well and your resistances aren't quite up there with your champion points, this may help you. So that's a choice to swap out if you prefer. You do not have to, but it really helps if you find yourself struggling. Now, of course, the majority of the time I would actually stick with Inner Light, but content depends on it. Also, note that we do not have any interrupt apart from our main bash. So if you do feel like you are in a situation where you're going to need Crush and Shock or whatever, you can obviously swap Inner Light for that on your back bar, and you can help people interrupt bosses with this skill here in the Destruction Staff skill line. That, again, is a swap out for you if you choose to do so. You don't have to. But if you want to keep it simple, keep it as close to the build as possible, Inner Light both bars, you're done. Blazing Spear is the last ability. It is in the Adrix Spear skill line. Fourth ability to unlock, starts off as Spear Shards and turns into Blazing Spear. Now this will do magic damage every 1 second plus the initial hit when it lands. Not only that, people can pick this up and restore nearly 4k of their highest resource. So if they have a stamina build, they get 4k stam back. If they have Magicka build, they get 4k Magicka back. It's really, really powerful. This is inside your rotation the whole time. You're going to use it once every 10 seconds or so. So you are going to make sure that this is on the ground all the time. Other people can pick it up and you're going to have loads and loads of damage. It's an 8-second damage over time. Looks like this. This must be underneath the targets at all times. Area of effect damage plus initial hit as well. Wall of Elements as well also must be down. So these two here must be down all the time while you're doing your stabs. Now, we've got one more left. Ice Comet. This is on our back bar only for passives. Do not use this unless the target is almost dead and you don't have enough for your Destro ultimate. If you know for sure you're no way going to build up enough ultimate before it dies to get this out, fire this instead. Same goes for target skeletons, bosses, adds, whatever. Use this instead. But the rest of the time, always use Thunderous Rage. Now, why this is only for the passives, I will get to in a moment, but this is in the Mage's Guild skill line. You will need Mage's Guild level 10 for this. However, if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world. What you can do instead is you can add some utility to your group, and you can buy Nova and morph it to Solar Prison. Now this will go on the ground. I don't know if I've got enough ultimate to show it. I do. Boom, I have some of that. Anything inside of here will have its damage reduced. So it will do loads and loads of damage in area of effect every 1 second for 10 seconds, but while it's down, you will apply Major Maim, reducing all targets inside of his damage by 30%. This is how you keep your group alive. So if you are in a situation where perhaps your trial leaders or your group leaders need some extra mitigation, you can use this as your spammable ulti instead of your Destro, but this is an oh shit situation. It's the same cost as Thunderous Rage, so you want to use this all the time, but if they do require for a Nova or something like that, you can backbar this and this will really, really help. Also, one member of your group can take a synergy from this if they get into the middle of it. pop it. They'll do a shit ton of magic damage in area of effect and knock down and stun enemies for 5 seconds as well. It's really, really powerful. So if you have Mage's Guild, put Ice Comet on here. If not, Nova or Solar Prism is absolutely fine, and you may want to utilize this in certain content anyway. It's a very, very strong ability. Now, passives. I'm going to go over these, of course, in detail because you are going to need them. These are the important ones you want to get. Increases your critical damage done by 10% when an Adric Spear ability is slotted. Also increases your damage done to block and targets. We want to crit, because if we do, we get this passive and we will do more crit damage. Also, our Beast Trap is minor force and it stacks with this. So we get more crit damage here and we get more crit damage here. Now the rules apply. You must have an Adric skill on your bar. So we've got one here and one here. So both bars, we get the bonus. Very important to note that. That's why you have one on both bars. Also, you gain minor protection for 3 seconds, reducing the damage taken by 8%. That's right. We don't just have this spammable here for AoE as well. We don't just have it for the heals as well. We don't just have it for his damage output as well, or even on the bar for that passive that we just saw with the crit damage. But we also have this on here because if you look at my buffs, you'll see like an armor effect pop up. See that there? You see like the shoulder of like a knight or whatever you want to call it. That is minor protection. We don't have to put down circular protection or anything like that. We actually have an 8% reduction for damage for 3 seconds for firing this ability. So if you use it once, use it again. When you go to the back bar, we use a spear and it fires again. We can have a really high uptime on a very tanky minor bonus. It's really, really handy. So our 2 Adric Spear abilities, which are inside our rotation the whole time, will keep us up and give us damage mitigation. It's very, very important. This is new to Murkmire and it is really, really good. So if you're not using Puncture and Sweeps as spammable, and you're not using your spears as often as you probably should be, you're not going to get this bonus. When you deal damage with an Adric Spear ability, you have a 25% chance to deal additional 1722 physical damage or 5052 Magicka damage, whichever one is higher. Obviously, magic damage is higher, that's the one we're going to get. This effect can happen once every 0.5 seconds. Now, this ability lasts 1.1, and this ability can be fired for 8 seconds duration. So, every time you cast this, you have 2 chances to proc that extra free damage. And while this is running, every time it procs, which is once every 2 seconds, once every second, you have a chance to fire it as well. Now, of course, if you puncture and sweeps and it fires it at the same time as this tick is due, they won't both fire. Only one or the other will. But if they overlap slightly, so this one procs and then this ticks afterwards, you can actually get the ability to fire twice in a row in the same second. It's really, really powerful. You got to get that passive. It's so fucking useful. Now, Balance Warrior, this increases your weapon damage by 6% and spell resistance by 2640. We don't need the weapon damage, but we do want the spell resistance. Dawn's Wrath, of course, we're using abilities in this skill line. These are really important. We're not using Vampire's Bane anymore, but we won't go over that. Increase the duration of your Sunfire, Eclipse, Solar Flare, and Nova abilities. Basically, any abilities that we're using apart from Jesus Beam. This, and Nova, if you're using it, will all have the duration increased by 2 seconds. You want to get that? Dawn's Wrath ability generates 3 ultimate. This can happen once every 6 seconds. So while you are in combat, now watch my ulti gen. If you use light attack, you get 3 ulti back every 1 second for 8 seconds. You can see it's going up in 3s. Now watch very carefully. It goes up again even quicker. Once every 6 seconds, you can reapply a Dawn's Wrath ability and gain an extra 3 ulti out of it. So with that being in your rotation and with Solar Barrage being in your rotation, the whole time you are going to take advantage of that passive. As long as you're doing your rotation as you should be, you will always be able to take advantage of the 3 extra ultimate once every 6 seconds, which will count. Casting a Dawn's Wrath ability grants minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 10%. This was doubled in Murkmire. This used to be 5%, not 10. Now it's 10, so this buff is a lot stronger than it used to be in the past. For 6 people in your group, you and 5 others, you will all gain minor sorcery, increasing your spell damage. It's very, very important indeed. And this reduces the Magicka, stamina, and ultimate cost of all your abilities by 4%. Get this, it's essential. You want to get the cost down. You want to make sure that you can sustain your rotation, and you want the ultimate to be cheaper so you can use it more often. This one here isn't 100% essential because you're not really using any abilities in this skill line, unless, of course, you're using this. But there are a couple that do benefit you regardless. Increases the healing effects from your Restoring Light abilities by up to 12% in proportion to the severity of the target's wounds. We're not actually using any healing abilities in here, so that's irrelevant. While standing in your own Cleansing Ritual, Rune Focus, or Rite of Passage, remember you can have this. This is Rune Focus. It's the original name. They use the original name in the passives. You will gain minor mending, increasing your healing done by 8%. So if you are using this ability you will gain Minor Mending for standing in it, which means your Puncture and Sweeps and your Jesus Beam, your Radiant Glory, will actually heal you for 8% more while you're getting those heals back for doing damage. So that is a relevant one. You might need to get that. Also, this reduces the movement speed of enemies by 30% if they're standing next to you, but that's not relevant anyway because they're already in your face. But this is handy if you use that resistance buff. This one here affects abilities that we're not actually using, so you don't have to get this one. This here is very important. Increases your resurrection speed by 20%. Resurrected allies return with 100% more health than they normally would, and you have a chance to refill like an empty soul gem with a soul gem. So, or with a soul rather. So you use a soul gem to res someone, but you could get it back. This is very, very important. Templars res really, really fast. You are in the face of the battle. You are going to have people die around you, and people are going to need to be resurrected. If you do it, you can do it quicker. So if you see someone drop beside you, pick them up. You're the fastest one at doing it. If you're a healer, by the way, this passive is very, very important when shit hits the fan. It's not your, oh, someone died, I should do the rezzing. No. Heal the people that are rezzing, but in an emergency, you can res much, much faster. However, as a DPS, get in there quick, pick them up. Now, Destruction Staff skill line, we're going to need all these. Shock Staff heavy attacks damage nearby enemies for 100% of the damage done. That's right, this heavy attack here. That looked really small because we've got no buffs applied, but the heavy attack itself, you can see the orange ticks, that will splash nearby targets. So just for doing a heavy attack, everything gets hit. It's very, very powerful, so the more you boost that, the better. Which is why our Wall of Elements, when it goes off balance, we have a heavy attack in there. We have a 70% increase to our heavy attack. The heavy attack is then scaled higher, meaning our splash damage is higher. Penetrating Magic, your Destruction Staff abilities ignore 10% of the enemy's spell resistance. So your Destro ulti, your Wall of Elements, and your light and heavy attacks will ignore some resistance. Increases your chance to apply Burning, Concussion, and Shield status effects by 100%. That's by, not for. What I mean by that is it's not 100% chance to do it, but it's a 100% chance increase on the base. So this will increase our chance of concussion, meaning while a Wall of Elements is down, we have a higher chance to create off balance. Also, this one's really important. With a Destruction Staff equipped, you must have it obviously active. For having a Lightning Staff equipped, you actually increase your damage done with Area of Effect abilities. Now, this, where's it gone? This one is Area of Effect. Your Spears are Area of Effect. Your Wall of Elements is Area of Effect. Your Jabs are Area of Effect. And your Heavy Attack, Light, and Splash damage is Area of Effect. Everything that we're doing, apart from our Light attacks, is actually Area of Effect. Apart from that and Radiant Glory as well. Everything else is it hits single target, but it counts as AoE. So our overall rotation is boosted by 8% for using lightning staves. Tried with flame staffs as well. Yeah, you got nice damage. Yeah, Jesus Beam did a decent amount, but the actual overall output was pretty much the same, and it was much, much nicer to kill everything in AoE rather than it was focus on just a single target and leave everything else alive. This worked out really, really nice. Plus, it fits inside of our rotation and helps with our sustain and our off-balance bonuses as well. This is a very balanced, constructed setup, deliberately taking advantage of the lightning staves. Also, when you kill an enemy with a Destruction Staff ability, you will gain 3,600 Magicka back, so sometimes it's up to you whether you want to have your Wall of Elements down and let them die if they're nearly dead, or finish them with a full heavy or whatever, rather than spam skills at them and run out of juice. Because if you do kill them with a Destruction Staff itself, you will get magic back. Light armor, of course, we're using all of these. These are very, very important because we're using 5 pieces of light armor. So, this reduces the effectiveness of snares applied to you by 4% for each piece of light armor worn by 20% in total because we're using 5 pieces, and reduces the cost of sprint. Obviously, we don't have a lot of stamina, and we are Magicka based, so we don't have the benefit to get out of snares and sprint really fast and all that good stuff. So we do have a reduction to cost and reduction to a negative effect from those things now to kind of balance that out. They did change that in Murkmire. Also, this increases your Magicka recovery for each piece worn, so up to 20% for us, and reduction to cost as well for Magicka abilities up to 10% because we've got 5 pieces on also. This will increase our resistances by each piece worn. This you need 5 pieces for. It will increase your spell crit rating by 2191, which is actually 10%, and this increases our spell penetration by 4884. Enemies in PVE generally have 18,200 spell resistance and physical resistance. They will be debuffed by your group in general, but you also have to consider that any gaps you need to fill them. So to start off with, we actually already ignore 4,884 spell resistance of the target we're up against. So it's not 18,002 anymore, it's already dropped. Now you apply a taunt, which is Major Fracture and Major Breach being the one that we need. That's already another 5280. Then you have passives in your CPs and all that good stuff and other buffs from other people. You can see where we're going with this. You want to get that 18200 down to 0, but this contributes towards that. Medium armor, we're using 1-piece medium, so you can take advantage of these if you really want to. Weapon crit is not essential. Don't bother with that one. This will increase your stamina recovery. You are going to want stamina recovery. We're using a stamina ability. We're going to have to block and dodge roll and all that kind of stuff, so we'd want to get a tiny, tiny bonus to that. Also, this one is not really essential. That's more for sneaking around and hiding and stealing stuff, so don't bother getting this one. So dexterity and improved sneak you won't need. Windwalker you will. And athletics will reduce the cost of dodge roll, which is actually quite important because we will be dodge rolling. It's only a 4% reduction, but it does count. Heavy armor, we are using 1 piece. This will give us a minor bonus to resistances. This will give us 108 magicka and stamina back once every 4 seconds, so long as we're taking damage. The health recovery is irrelevant because we're a vampire, but this will contribute as well. It's really, really nice towards our sustain to give us back once every 4 seconds. It's a small amount, but it does add up. Also, Juggernaut increases your max health by 2% for each piece worn. We have 1 piece. We'll take the 2% extra health. Thank you very much. Vampire, of course, we're a stage 4 vampire. Why wouldn't we be? 10% increase to stam recovery for our beast trap and blocks and dodge rolls and stuff. And Magicka, of course, because we're using Magicka for everything else. Very, very handy passive. You get it all the time for being stage 2 or higher. And Undeaf, if you're stage 3 or higher, which I'm always a stage 4, reduces your damage taken by up to 33% based on your missing health while under 50. So the lower health you have, in terms of under 50%, I mean, no, I don't mean as a whole pool, I mean under 50, the less damage you take. The lower and lower and lower you go, the less damage you take. You get really, really tanky at low health. Now consider the fact, obviously, if you have your rune focus down, you're sitting on high resists. If you have stabs running, obviously you've got your minor protection, so you're even tankier, and you're healing from this as well. So you can go low health, you can take less damage, and you can get it back again. It's really, really handy. Very, very powerful passives indeed. Fighters Guild, you will need Intimidating Presence because you want your Beast Trap to be cheaper, so you'll have to get this. And you will want Banish the Wicked because you get 9 ultimate back for every undead, Daedra, or werewolf that you personally get the kill and blow on. This is very important. Mages Guild. Now, of course, Ice Comet is Mages Guild 10, so you will need 10 to get that. And if you do have that, you want to take advantage of these passives. This one here increases your max Magicka and Magicka recovery by 2% for each Mage Guild ability slotted. This gives us 5% max magic, but it also gives us a further 2 for having that passive. So we get 7% increased bonus here, plus we get an extra bit of recovery. Back bar same applies, obviously, but we get 4% on the back bar for max Magicka because obviously we're using 2 abilities. The Ice Comet does count as one of those abilities. So for having this on your bar, you are going to get that extra 2% bonus and 2% recovery, but it's not the end of the world if you don't have it. You can just suffice with Nova for the time being if you want, or even if you preference it. Now, the reason obviously we have that on the back bar as well is because we do need 1 Destruction Staff ability on our front bar. The Thunderous Rage is our Destruction Staff ability, so we can still get all our Destro passives. On the back bar we have 1 ability too, so we can still get all the Destro passives. This is why we put Ice Comet on the back. We're not doing our main spammables on the front, but on the back bar while we're putting down our dots, we still get that extra bonus to damage. Undaunted, you are going to need these. If you take a synergy, you will get 4% max health, max stamina, and max magicka back. So however large your pools are, you get 4% of the total back every time you take a synergy. Pick up every synergy you can bloody see. Every single one is beneficial to you. If a tank is screaming about someone taking, I'll quote, their synergies, which is bullshit because it's not theirs, it's yours and theirs and everybody else's, it's for everyone, then just, you've got spears in your rotation. Look, watch this. You're throwing them anyway. And you can't take this, so he can shut his face and take your spear. Take every synergy that you see. They are really, really helpful and keep you sustain up as well. And they'll obviously give you damage shields, heals, extra damage, all that kind of stuff. This one is essential. For each type of armor worn, we get 2% to all of our bars. So 2% stamina, 2% health, 2% magic. We're using 1 light. Sorry, no, we're not. We're using 1 medium, which is 1 type. We're using 1 heavy, which is another type. And we're using 5 light. Not 1 light, we're using 5. So we've got 3 different types of armor to give us this max bonus. Assault and support, you're not necessarily going to need these right now, but you may need Siege Shield or Purge, whichever one you prefer. I think Siege Shield is much more expensive. In Sanctum Ophidia on Vet, you are going to want this. Your raid leaders will probably tell you why, but make sure that you unlock this skill. Just level 1 of it is fine. High Elf, of course we're a High Elf. This will increase our max Magicka recovery by 9%. We also get a 10% increase to maximum Magicka, and we also get an increase to your Flame, Frost, and Shock damage by 4%. We're doing pretty much all Shock damage, apart from Magic damage as well, which we are doing in our class abilities, but we do have a bit of Fire as well with our monster set, so this will actually contribute to that. Alchemy, this is very, very important. Get medicinal use as soon as possible. There is a guide in the description on how to level Alchemy up in about 15 minutes flat, as long as you have the materials, and I also note some very, very easy to acquire materials. Get this to 50, max this out, dump all these points here, which I'm highlighting, and just keep medicinal use if you don't want to continue to make potions yourself. That way, all of your potions will last 30% longer, meaning that the potions we do use, the crafted ones, will actually last for 47.6 seconds instead of the cooldown, which is 45, so we can have the buffs up 100% of the time. If you don't have this bonus, instead of being 47.6, I think it's around 36 seconds, something like that. So you have a 10-second gap, which is harsh. Make sure you get this as soon as possible. Now, while we're on that subject, the potions we're using are spell pots, of course. So this gives us major sorcery, increasing our spell damage by 20% for 47 seconds. Gives us major prophecy, which we do already have on both bars, so that's a negative. We don't need to worry about that one. But then we also get magic back for using it, plus we gain major intellect, increasing our Magicka recovery by 20% for 47.6 seconds as well. However, you do not have to use these if you don't want to, and especially if you're having trouble with your beast trap and you're in an optimized group. When I say optimized, I mean everyone's bringing their A game. Now, if you are in a situation where you have a Dragon Knight in your group, doesn't matter what role they're playing, as long as they are a Dragon Knight, if they have access to molten armaments and they're actively using it and keeping the buff up time 100% of the time, you will get major sorcery anyway. So you don't need to use these. Prophecy's already covered on both bars. You won't need sorcery because it's covered by the DK. But we do need major intellect. So what do? You can use tripods. If you use tripods, you will get health back, you'll get stamina back, and you will get magic back, and you'll get 20% recovery to all 3 resources. Which means your beast trap sustain is no longer a problem, your Magicka sustain is identical to this, your prophecy is already covered, and your spell damage is already covered. So if you are working alongside a Dragon Knight who has molten armaments up all of the time, use tripods instead. They're a little bit cheaper to make as well, so if you are in a situation of that, that's perfect. It will cover your sustain and everything. In the meantime, if you don't have that, of course, spell pots are the way to go. Okay, now we're going to get onto the gear. First of all, do not panic. Yes, this is from a trial. No, it's not done on vet. You can do it on normal. The vet version, you'll get perfected stuff. On the normal one, you'll get just the basic one. Perfected has an extra 1k Magicka. But you can do just fine with the normal stuff. I know people are scared to get into trials or even think they can't get into them because they don't know where to start. Keep an eye on Gratwood, Craglorn, Dishan, and sometimes Somerset as well. Depends on your server which popular area has the most kind of people. But you will notice in the zone chat there are people shouting for roles for NCR all day long. That is normal cloud rest. Get yourself in there, raise your hand, fill the role that they need, and get in, get your loot, and get out. You can do it all day long. They happen all the time. 90% of the time they're passes, unless you get someone that's really, really stuck and they start rage quitting. But that happens in the game anyway, across all areas. But get yourself in those trials. Don't be scared. And failing that, if you think you can't get in trials, you be the one that shouts in zone chat, hosting NCR, and see how many people join, because they will. But if you're not using this, you can, of course, use War Maiden instead, which comes from Vardenfell, and you can actually get one of the lightning staves from a quest. There's all sorts of things you can do with that, especially since you can buy it off the market. So you've got 2 choices. You can use Sororia, or you can use War Maiden. Now, we are deliberately using Precise because we want to make sure that we can take advantage of as much crit as possible versus the sets that we're actually using, so that we can get that crit bonus from our Minor Force and from our passives in the Templar skill line as well. Now, what this set does is give you spell damage. It will give you minor slayer increase on all of your damage done by 5% in dungeons, trials, and arenas, and also will increase your max Magicka by 1k, almost 1k, 1058. But what this will do is this will create a ring of fire underneath your feet, and it won't move, and it will last 10 seconds. And if you do direct damage again, it's only direct damage that will fire this, by the way, it will reapply itself. But while you're standing in it, you actually generate 30 additional spell damage every tick for standing in there for a maximum of 20 stacks. Now, as long as you keep this buff up and stay inside of it, you will keep that 20 stack bonus, which is a really high increase to spell damage. But if you leave it, the time will start counting down from 5, and if you don't reapply it and stand in it or get back in it within that 5 seconds, you will lose the entire stack and have to start all over again. This is very, very important. This, for stack and burn situations, is very, very solid, especially since you're in a melee position. But if there's lots and lots and lots of moving around in the trial or dungeon or whatever, and you find that you are not keeping this up even close to a decent amount of time, then War Maiden's probably better for you. This is an advanced set, and it requires you to pay attention to where your procs and bonuses are. Otherwise, you're just going to slack. It's going to fall off all the time, and you're actually going to have a negative DPS outcome. So the choices as far as these sets are concerned between War Maiden and Sororia aren't just about where they come from, it's also about your application to the build and the setup itself, because if you can't keep this up, it's not worth it. But if you can, you're going to see some really good results. Now basically how this works, direct damage, fire, circle underneath me. Look at my buffs, you can see it ticking up 1, 2, again, it's going up and up and up. We're up to 7 stacks already. As long as I keep this up, if it runs out, you've got to reapply it quickly. But I've still got the timer. You can see the 5 to 4 seconds is just staying where it is. It's hovering the whole time because I'm staying in here. Now I've got 20 stacks. Watch it run out. Now the timer starts. Uh-oh, it's going to go away. Reapply direct damage, otherwise you lose it. Now if you stand out of it, same applies. Your timer starts. Get back in, resets it. Get out, get back in. Ran out, you've got to put it up before the timer runs out. We were lucky. If you stay out for too long, you're in mechanics, you're running around, blah, 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 and it falls off, you're in shit. You got to start it all over again, which is a pain. So it is advanced. It does take a little bit of practice. You are going to have to pay attention to your buff timers. Otherwise, it's going to be a negative step. If not, then obviously stick with it. It's really, really strong. Now, where you want this is your lightning staff and either 3 pieces of jewelry or 3 pieces of body armor, or a mixture of the two, as long as your staff is the 2 pieces, because these count as 2 pieces now. So you have the staff on the front. You do not have it on the back. You don't need it on the back, because as you can see, if I apply this and stay inside of it, if I swap my back bar, I still keep it. Don't need to mess with that anymore. I still keep it. So I've got plenty of time. Now the second ability, or weapon even, is the Maelstrom Lightning Staff, of course, infused with a shock damage glyph on it. Any light or heavy attack damage you do while inside Wall of Elements is increased. A stupid amount. And that does stack with our Empower ability from our Solar Barrage. It does stack with Off Balance as long as we're doing a heavy attack and all that good stuff. They do stack up a lot. So this is very, very important if you can get it. If you can't get it, then of course just go with a willpower staff. That'll give you 1,400 extra magicka on your back bar, so you'll still get a damage increase while you're doing your rotations. Don't worry too much if you don't have that either. You can obviously just put a crafter one on the back of your choice, maybe Churg's pack or something like that. But the Maelstrom staff is very, very important. It is essential to the build to get the maximum output as far as your damage is concerned, but it's not essential in terms of making it work. You can use a crafted or willpower in the meantime. Now the reason we use a shock glyph is because on an infused weapon with a shock glyph, well, any glyph in fact, but the shock glyph specifically, because it can proc more concussion uptime, giving us more off balance, this can actually fire once every 3 seconds, and you don't have to just put it down and be on your back bar. If you swap, not only do you keep your Maelstrom bonus, but that will still fire every 3 seconds. It will still do it. That glyph will proc all the time, and that will help with your uptime of concussion and off balance. Now, the sets, obviously, Sororia is on the body for me, but we'll go to that in a minute. The other set is Overwhelming. So this will give you a max magic bonus. It will give you spell damage. It will give you spell damage again. And when you activate a class ability, you will have a 15% chance to do shock damage to the closest target once a second for 6 seconds. They have to be within 12 meters, but we're melee ranged anyway. This actually hits really, really hard. This can also proc concussion, which also contributes to our off balance, making sure that the group get this bonus pretty much all the time as soon as it's ready. In fact, every second rotation, you can almost guarantee off balance from this build alone. Now, the reason it's useful on this build is because most people, if they're using a Templar, tend to use Psijic Order spammables or Destro Staff spammables. Our class spammables is what we're using. This fires off class abilities. As you see, they're just fired instantly. So the reason that's important is because we're using a class ability here, which we use every rotation. We're using this, which we use all the time during execute. We use this, which we're using all the time in every rotation because that's our main spammable. We have this every rotation as well because it's our main damage over time on the ground. And we also use this because it keeps up our light attacks. We're using 5 class abilities. We are going to make that proc pretty much all the time. It's really, really strong. You can have 100% uptime on it if you're lucky, but you'd have to make sure you reapply it when it runs out, just inside your rotation. But it's really, really strong. Now the helmet we're using is Grofdau. We want infused on the head and Divines on the shoulders. It doesn't matter whether this is heavy or this is medium or the other way around, but make sure one or the other is one of each. And make sure, of course, that you stay close to the target at all times. You've probably seen the large fire circle around my feet rather than the Sororia one that is the smaller one. This is what you're looking for. This will last 5 seconds. It'll do damage every second, and it will do damage in area of effect in the form of flame damage to everyone caught. And this will proc from any damage. So this fires from class damage. This will fire from any damage. Sorry, class abilities. This will fire from any. Now what you're looking for is this. Now we just need both fire at the same time. We've got Overwhelming running now, zapping, and we've got Grofdau doing the fire stuff. We just got loads of damage there doing nothing. just one ability. It's really, really powerful. Not to mention, of course, this is area of effect damage. So anyone caught inside of this big ring of fire will also take additional AoE damage because our lightning staff increases our AoE damage by 8%. This is very, very powerful. Now, of course, you can use Zaan if you prefer. You'll get very similar damage, maybe a little bit more on single target, but you will lose all the area effect damage that this supplies. So just consider that before you swap stuff out. But the choice is yours. I much prefer the AoE damage bonus because we are doing nothing but AoE, regardless of how high our single target is. Now, the jewelry is 1 Bloodthirsty, 1 Arcane, 1 Arcane. Spell damage on everything. It doesn't matter, again, which order these pieces of gear are in, as long as you have 3 Sororia pieces on you somewhere and 1 Sororia staff. Or, if it's War Maiden you're using, War Maiden staff and 3 War Maiden pieces in any order. The rest is obviously overwhelming, so get what you can and put it on, and as soon as you've got those slots filled, you're good to go. Now, we're going to get into the champion points, then I'm going to go into the rotation. Okay, 72 points into Ironclad, making sure that you've got 23% reduction to incoming direct damage. 64 into Hardy, 64 into Elemental Defender, so we've got a 13% reduction across the board to all damage, excluding Oblivion damage. And then, of course, reduces the damage taken from damage over time effects by 19% as well. So if you're getting hit with a Poison Dot, these two both apply, Hardy and Thick Skinned. And if it's a Magic Dot, you see where this is going. They stack together. 19 points into quick recovery so that we increase the heals that we receive, whether they're done by us or other people, by 5%. And of course you get the Field Physician passive as well, which means if you're resurrecting people, and you should be, not only are you faster as a Templar, but you also take less damage from this passive for doing so. So make sure that you do the resin really, really fast if you can, and you will take less damage while you're there. Don't forget, of course, healing received is heals that come from you or somebody else. So your Puncturing Sweeps, your Radiant Glory, all that good stuff that heals you as well, this will make them stronger. 44 points into Warlord, reducing the cost of Break Free. We're going to need that. 75 points into Tenacity to return back 14% increased amount of Magicka when we do our heavy attacks. Arcanus increasing our Magicka recovery by 14% as well. If you put more points into here, they won't benefit you until you get to 100. That 1% will only hit you to 15. It's not worth it. 25 points in here is way, way too much. Your diminished returns are too high. Don't bother wasting them. 76 points into Tumbling. I do dodge roll quite a lot, especially if I'm in Maelstrom and stuff like that. You can switch this to Warlord or Block Cost, or whatever you want if you prefer. But 72 points in here will actually give you enough to give you this 23% bonus. But the extra 4 points, because they're not going anywhere else, give me the Treasure Hunter passive as well. So I get better loot when I loot chests and stuff like that. That's a bit of a selfish one, but I'm not going to do anything for the last 4 points, so why not? Blue Trees. 64 points into Elemental Expert, increasing all the damage that we do with Magic, Shock, or Frost, or Flame by 13%, so that's pretty much everything. Increases your spell penetration by 2766. Now, we are using a precise weapon. This amount of points into spell erosion will almost equal it out as though we're using a sharpened weapon, even though we are not. So this is very, very handy. Just remember, by the way, if you do find yourself capping out over 18,200 and you've done the maths and you've figured out that you are over penetrating in most situations, figure out how much by. The reason I say that is because, first of all, area of effect fights, and we have a lot of AoE, you are going to want to overcap slightly because all of those different targets are not going to be debuffed equally. Crushes will not apply to multiple targets, they only apply to one, and other bonuses and buffs and debuffs and stuff are not up 100% of the time. So this plugs the gap if you are in a situation where the buffs and debuffs are falling off, which they will be. And of course, single target, if you find you're way over cap, say for example you're 2k over, which you shouldn't be, you won't be with this setup at all, then of course you can drop this down a little bit, but this is absolutely fine where it is. 61 points into Elfborn. We are doing a lot of crits. We need to make sure we crit as much as possible based on the setup that we have. We do have an increased crit damage bonus in our passives. We have it in our Beast Trap, and we have it here as well. So we have a really high crit damage bonus. So when we do crit, we hit harder. Staff Expert, we are doing light attacks and heavy attacks quite a lot, so we increase that by 10%. We're also doing quite a bit of direct damage as well, so we increase that by a further 10% as well, and that also does contribute to our lights and heavies, because these are direct. The light and heavy attack isn't, but the pop at the end is, and the initial light attacks are. This as well, Thermaturge, 75 points into Thermaturge. We are using a lot of damage over time. We want to make sure we put 75 points in here, not to get the 23.40, we want the 23, so we have gone slightly over here, but it's to get the Exploiter passive, so that when enemies do go off balance, and they will do, once for 5 seconds every 20, we will get an increased bonus of 10% to all of our damage, and our heavy attacks obviously are increased by 70%, giving us double resources back. So this is very, very important. The whole build is centered around survivability, sustained damage output, and boosting the group's damage by applying off balance. So now your healers don't have to put a Desperate stuff on the back and start throwing out heavy attacks and Wall of Elements and stuff like that. You've got it all covered. Now, I'm going to show you the rotation. confuse the crap out of people. No, it's really not that bad. First of all, you need a beast trap down. Make sure that's on the ground. Then, you want to start off with inner light, or power of the light, sorry, and then swap bars, and start from the back bar. So your power of the light is on the target, switch bars. You want your spears, light attack, solar barrage, light attack, wall of elements, swap. That does not change ever. That's the same always on the back bar. Spear, light attack, solar, light attack, wall of elements, swap bars. Now, when you swap bars, by the way, your wall of elements and swaps have to be fairly fast to make sure you get the full uptime of your ability. So you literally hit the button, then straight away swap bars as soon as you've definitely pressed it. So it looks like that. Instead of him doing the full animation, hit swap, and he'll actually kind of flip his staff around. That will give you more uptime on that, and it won't run out while you're doing your rotation. You'll get all the bonus damage you are supposed to be getting. Now, your front bar is also very, very simple. Once you get to the front, once your wall of elements is down, power of the light, light attack stabs, light attack stabs, light attack beast trap swap. Now we'll do that all in one go. Start with this. Spear, light, barrage, light, wall, swap. Light power of the light, light stabs, light beast trap swap. And you do that every single time. However, every second rotation, you can almost guarantee off balance. Not always, but 90% of the time, maybe a bit higher. When that happens, that's when you want a heavy attack in there. So I'll give you an off balance example. We'll put this down. We'll do a back bar. He's off balance. It lasts for 5 seconds. Heavy attack, and then swap. And you see what I did there? Instead of doing 2 stabs, I did 1 stab and 1 heavy. Now, if the off balance lands as you swap bars, so it's instantly on, you've got 5 seconds before it runs out, so you've got enough time to sneak in a stab and then heavy. If not, if it's been on for a couple of seconds and you've just switched, get your heavy in straight away. As long as you take advantage of that off balance heavy attack, you are good to go. And what you're looking for is this. If I can get it to proc again. Come on, don't play awkward. There we go. Look above his head. The blue symbol with the person's head in it and the kind of dizzy visual on it, that's what you're looking for. What you've got now, however, see the dude in the little square, the little knight looking really poncy, that is the immunity. So the dark blue one with the swirly stars around somebody's head like they've been knocked out, that is off balance, which I'm going to try and get again. There you go. Counting down to 0, gone. Now he's immune for 15 seconds. So it lasts 5, immune for 15. It's really, really important. Your rotation's roughly 10 seconds long, so every 20 seconds you're going to get off balance once. That's when you want to take off a spear and replace it with a heavy. That's all you have to do. Now we're going to speed that up a bit so you can see what it looks like. He might die before I get there, actually. He's off balance, throw in a heavy, beast trap swap. Now he's not off balance, so we keep the rotation up and we do 2 stabs instead. So we'll try once more on this dude. Spear, flare, wall, power of the light. He's off balance, so we'll take off 1 spear, replace it with a heavy. Beast trap swap, spear, barrage, wall, light, no off balance, so we'll do 2 stabs instead. Beast trap swap. So every rotation is 2 stabs, unless he's off balance, in which case it's 1 stab and a heavy. That will keep your sustain up pretty much 100% of the time, especially if you've got early drain and bubbles and all that good stuff coming in. If you're taking synergies and you're keeping an eye on your off balance debuff, and you can utilize the heavy attack at the right time, you will not run out. It's really, really powerful. Now, of course, I'm going to show you a demonstration on the dummy, so you can see exactly what it looks like all put together, and then you can get to practicing, because it's not, it's simple in terms of a lot of other rotations that you see, but it's going to take some practice with timing. Anyway, here we go. So hopefully that helped, hopefully that wasn't too boring, hopefully you now kind of understand where this is going, why it's built the way it is and what it does in terms of performance and how it can help you and your group, plus you're not squishy. First of all, thank you all very, very much for watching. I hugely appreciate the support, and if you're not subscribing, please do hit that button. It is free. Furthermore, if you want to help support outside the channel, there are some links in the description for Patreon, Twitter, Facebook, and of course the website xynodegaming.com. And of course, I live stream on Twitch pretty much every night from 10 PM UK time. So you can come and check out the live streams there and maybe see some of these characters in action. Once again, thank you all very, very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.